Welcome to Connecting the Community podcast. I am your host, Marge Andre. I will be connecting you to people, organizations, and events that create community. I am creating this podcast in Richmond Hill, an eclectic and very culturally diverse community with lots of trees and streams and interesting people, just up the hill from Toronto. On this podcast, I will be talking with astronomers and husband and wife, Dr. Tuba Koktoy and Dr. Shelton, and Aizick Grimmman, the producer of the documentary, The Astronomer's Guide to the Past. It's all about Richmond Hill's David Dunlap Observatory. So this documentary, it's the topic of this podcast. So welcome, Aizick, Ian, and Tuba.
Hello.
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 It is so good to be able to have this conversation. But first, I want to say that I really enjoyed the documentary, watched it the other night, and I am very glad that I'm now talking to you about it. I've got lots of questions. So I'm going to start with Aizick, with you. You were the producer. Can you give us an elevator pitch for this documentary? Can you briefly introduce yourself? Ian, let's start with you.
Dr. Ian Shelton, just hi, Ian. Astronomer, I guess, professionally, but research in the past, mostly doing teaching and outreach right now.
Okay. And you, Tuba.
It's Dr. Tuba Koktoy. I'm also a professional astronomer. I used to work at the David Dunlap Observatory during University of Toronto, was operating the DDO. I did my PhD research there at the DDO using the 74-inch telescope. And also continue my research until the end when it's closer to the 2008 when the UFT sold the place. And now I'm part of the DDO Defenders, our nonprofit organization, and we're running only outreach programming at the DDO for now, but we have, of course, other projects that we think of.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And Aizick, briefly about yourself.
Sure. My name is Aizick Grimmman. I'm a freelance director of photography. I live in Richmond Hill. I work throughout Toronto, and I've had the great pleasure of traveling around the world filming for children's shows, for news programs, for corporations.
Okay. So I'm going to start with Aizick, with you. You were the producer. Can you give us an elevator pitch for this documentary?
Richmond Hill has an incredible scientific history, and it has quite a lot of amazing public spaces. And the DDO is a really well-hidden gem that I didn't want to be forgotten. And so it's a short piece, but it sort of tells the story of this beautiful place, the place that surrounds it, the people who run it, and the importance that it has in the community.
Okay. Very good. Thanks for that, Aizick. Oh, life. But Tuba and Ian, did you know Aizick before you began this documentary?
Yes, we know Aizack before. I think we met 10 years ago about that. You might recall.
I actually think it was 15 years ago.
It was 15? Okay. Wow, he knows better. Okay. So Marge might recall that we were running astrophotography courses, freelancing astrophotography courses, and Aizack enrolled one of our courses. And we know that since then he's doing, professional photography, interested in also doing the night sky photography. And so we know him then.
That's so, okay. And I was supposed to take one of those courses, so I could have met him 15 years ago as well. So, okay. So Aizick, you know photography. Do you know much astronomy?
No, I have a general love of science and history. I'm not a specialist nearly in the way that Ian and Tuba are, but I remember having met them 15 years earlier, and I was doing photography because I literally could not afford to do cinematography. I just couldn't afford the gear, but I wanted to train my eye, and they had this really fascinating, astrophotography course, and then when the idea for this came up and it happened to be their names, I immediately recognized the names because They don't have forgettable names, especially Tuba's.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, very good. Okay, I like that story. So,
Yes.
what prompted you to make the documentary?
So as I mentioned, it is a bit of a political piece for me because I was watching the elections happen, not just, of course, internationally and federally, provincially, but like municipally, they all matter, but people don't tend to show up for elections, especially municipally. So I was really worried that we had counselors and people who were going into office that were very happy to sell out our public spaces and sell out our history in the community for what was a quick buck for them. And when the election happened, I was like, that could have been really close. We could have legitimately had a real problem here. So I thought, how can I create something with the skill set that I actually have that could act as a bulwark to protect the space? Because right now I felt that the DDO would be at risk if people didn't know it was there. And so if we created something that helped, because what Ian and Tuba do, like that place is full all the time with people as they run programs. But I wanted it to reach even more people so that if someone came into power in Richmond Hill who had the machination to sell off our public spaces, that there would immediately be a backlash to be like, oh, but we know this space, we know these places, and you can't just come and take them. And so that was the inception of why to create it. So it's essentially just a love letter, especially to the work that these two do.
Thank you.
Okay, I like that. I like everything that you said. Okay, the documentary, it's about 10 minutes long. Is there a certain film or documentary category for this length of film? Like, I felt like, why couldn't you go on longer?
I assume that most people don't have a big attention span. I know I don't. And so I like to eat things in bite sizes. I thought the story was good for the period of time that it was. There is a space in the world for short films. It's been in 5 different short film festivals. It's awaiting permission to enter 7 others. It has won the best documentary short film festival in Toronto, which was great,
Yeah,
which means
impressive.
people are seeing it. And so that it fit into that space. And, I wanted it to be taken by the DDO and by the city of Richmond Hill and be able to put on their website, and hopefully that locals could watch it and enjoy it and then
Very
go.
good. Okay. No, it was, again, a great documentary. So Ian and Tuba, you are not actors, but I thought you looked really good on film. Were you surprised or pleased at how good you looked and sounded? Like, does all your lecturing prepare you for this? Or should we give some credit to Aizack for how good you looked?
Well, there is some professional secrets there, right? We shouldn't tell that, right, Aizack?
Okay.
I didn't do anything.
Yeah, and there is some magic ones he can do, and I mean, just kidding. But we had, we have some kind of public speaking experience. I guess that helps. Also, of course, Aizack, we did practiced, and we decided what to say, what not to say. I mean, edits, and he did a lot of magic. I know that. But I think, what do you mean we're not actors?
Okay. I'll add that to your resume. So, okay.
I mean, I should add that you cannot fake passion,
Yes.
right? So like they are very scientifically literate, and I'm sure everybody at some point in their life has met somebody who is very knowledgeable in a thing, and that person is very monotone and very boring to listen to. But it is so obvious the passion that Tubi and Ian have for the place and have for the science, and they just want to share it. They just want to share it with everybody that they can. So there was no rehearsing. There was no like multiple takes. It was one sit down session, and we did it. I think it was a 30-minute interview that I cut down to the final 9 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, no, that was fantastic for that. So you've said it's won one award, and what was that again? Can you brag? What was the award that this documentary won?
It won Best Documentary as a short documentary in the Toronto Short Film Festival this past summer. It was featured in 4 other festivals, and there are 7 other festivals that are we're waiting to find out if we're being admitted to it. They're only telling us in the coming months.
Okay. So these are Canadian, international. Where are you going with this film? And do you get to go every time it shows?
Okay. No, nobody's paying that ticket. So far it's been accepted to a New York Short Film Festival, Paris Short Film Festival, Niagara Falls Short Film Festival, 2 Toronto Short Film Festivals. We're waiting to hear about one in Dubai, another one in Vancouver, another one in, oh geez, where was it? There's a whole bunch of them, so my brain has sort of stopped working. Let's see here.
Okay.
You mentioned
It's all over the place.
It's all over the place.
you
Okay.
mentioned Australia, and I said
Yes, there was also one in Australia that we're waiting on.
Wow. So we're going to have visitors to Richmond Hill from all over. This sounds very exciting. Yeah. So, but you released the YouTube on January 1st, correct? And like, how is that decision made, and how does it fit with being in film festivals?
So certain film festivals have rules about when you're allowed to premiere it, and that's mainly because they want to be the big premiere. So when we did the Toronto Film Festival, the rule was you can't have had it play anywhere else before us. Sometimes places say, oh, you can't have played in this space, in this region before us. But when we got to January 1st, essentially none of the ones that we're waiting for have that requirement. So we don't need to lock it down anymore in order to still qualify for those festivals.
Okay.
So that's sort of why it came
That
out now.
explains that. Okay, so I'm trying to figure that out. I'm a big documentary fan, so I am very curious about how this all works. Okay, I would like each of you to answer the question, describe what the benefits that you believe that this documentary has. And Aizack, you've already sort of said something, but can you expand on it?
You know what? Because it's their space, I'd love them to go first, and I'll go
Okay,
after.
fine. Okay. Tuba, Ian, what do you really think the benefit from this documentary will be?
I will say for me, it's just to promote the DDO astronomy programs first and foremost, and the future projects like citizen science we want to do at a greater audience. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
it's a venue to do science for the general public in a non-pretentious sort of way. I mean, people either science phobic or they're science philic. Either they love it or they hate it, and this is a real problem. I mean, there's nothing to be feared of, and we depend on it critically. So unless you know what your enemy is, if you hate it, or what your friend is, if you love it, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage. And it's not difficult. It's not, most of the basic concepts are actually quite easily to understand. I'm not going to teach quantum mechanics, except quantum mechanics itself is just another set of rules. There's nothing, somebody explains it to you, you can understand it. And that's our priorities, is not to dumb it down, but to simplify it so that anybody that comes to hear our presentations comes to enjoy it, whether the carrot is, we're going to look through the telescope, get them in the door, and then very carefully actually, educate them, take them to a place where they actually leave smarter than when they came in the door. So my priority is that it's a challenge, and to make sure every single week, every single time we do one of these presentations, the public comes away happy. That's the first priority, but also knowledgeable. They come away smarter and not fearful or as fearful as they were before about science. I mean, it's really insane that there's this huge disparity between people that think they're fearful of science. I mean, that's really comes down to the point where they are not even apologetic about it. They try to embarrass or they insult science in general, and that's insane. It's it puts us on our toes, but we have other things to spend our time with. Thank you very much. So it'd be nice if we give it more venues. There's not enough venues where people can actually experience science without thinking they're getting science. And so that's why the DDO is this very easy sell, but it's also a great venue to do that.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. I've heard you say that before when I was at a program at the DDO, when you're part of the speaker series, and whatever. And I think you should keep saying it. So thank you for saying that. Thank you for really encouraging us to have this love of science. I think we really need it. So even myself as a non-scientist, I will try to learn more. So yeah. And Aizack, anything else that you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I would tell you that I mean, we're all familiar with the Greek myth of Atlas, who carries the burden of the world upon his back. And that is how I feel with regards to Tuba and Ian, because they carry the whole legacy of the DDO and what it means to the community on their backs. And what happens when they decide that they're done with it, right? Because they come from the line of people who have managed that place for now nearly 90 years. And so my hope was that when we made something like this, that the next generation finds its footing to say, okay, well, when they're ready to pass the torch, I'm interested, because I feel like, you need to have a cheerleader, right? There's that old saying in sports, like, what do you need to be a sports legend? You need to have talent and you need to have a poet in the press box. I'm hoping to be that poet for them, so that somebody else on their behalf says, look at what we're doing. You can be part of citizen science. You don't have to drive all the way downtown or go to Ottawa or Montreal. We have it in our own backyard.
Yeah.
We have a legacy of scientific discovery here, and we can continue to do it here. It's not just a decoration. It's not a museum. It's still an active place that has a history. It's a beautiful nature place to come and enjoy, and all of those things combined matter.
Well said. Okay, Tuba, I'm going to pass the wand to you. Actually, I'm going to ask you, if you had a magic wand, what would you like to see the future of the DDO be?
Well, if I have the magic wand, I guess I imagine my dreams to be the greatest projects that I dream for the DDO to happen, and for the future generations, like echo the Aizack's words, have the people pass our torch. It continues, and there is a lot of, we have the 10 years, 20-year project sitting in this city's hands. That take, but if we have enough money, somebody that can help us with that money, that we can do greater things, like we can start building a planetarium, start from that.
Okay.
Yes.
I would second that plan, to have a planetarium, and I would love to have an educational place there as well. So
yes, we can have a real amphitheater, for people that enjoy outdoors.
Yeah.
Still keep the telescope running with the professionals.
Yes. Yeah.
And going from different places.
Well, I've been to your programs. Often I come with my son because he really likes this stuff and understands it more than I do. But there are a lot of younger people that you have attracted, and that makes me very hopeful that we will have this bright future. So not just a lot of people across the ethnocultural divide of Richmond Hill, but also ages as well. So we may get our wish that way. Aizack, I want to ask you, what else are you doing? What's next for you?
I mean, I'm feeling very lucky. I'm working on documentaries. I just finished a documentary actually in Vancouver, thanks to these two, because they recommended me to the film producer. That was on the observatory that they have over there on Vancouver Island.
Okay.
And they work on true crime documentaries and commercials. I try to arrange a work life that allows me to still be home with the kids, so that I don't have to travel too far abroad. And so fortunately, that's sort of where the niche is. Working on investigative pieces with CBC, it's great.
Okay, very good. Okay, so I will keep an eye out for let's see what you are doing, and let us know when the one from Vancouver comes out as well. Okay, is there anything any of you would like to add?
I was just going to say that we've been talking about astronomy, and the focus, obviously, the documentary focused on the observatory enclave itself. The major large telescope, the administration building. You saw a little bit beautiful library and so on. Sort of part of the past. That's what you saw, but it's a living past. So that it has a future, another 75 years or 100 years would be nice in the future, still operational. But it's sitting in the middle of a fantastic green space. And the fact that there's 2 dozen deer that call that home and they're not being fed by anybody, on a hard winter, yeah, they'll eat some of our trees, but for the most part, they're feeding themselves and they're taking care of themselves. It's free to go. There's all sorts of other wildlife on the property. It's a beautiful green space, oasis. It's more than just the science enclave. The fact that it's situated in a beautiful green space that's actually, a lot of it is naturalized because, when the U of T was doing it, they were supposed to sort of turn into art, sort of beautiful parkland sort of thing. It's sort of a memorial to David, of course, David Dunlap, and only a little bit of it got developed. The rest of it was partially, farmed. If it was farmable, other places just the orchards grew in them on themselves, and so it naturalized itself, and a lot of it is still there, exactly as such. And the city's been very careful to manipulate in a way that they're getting rid of the invasive species that shouldn't be there, but allowing it to go back to a little park a little bit of wildlife in the middle of this urban sprawl. Mm-hmm. And hopefully the urban sprawl will sort of get pushed aside by the growing parkland. That would be my sort of dream, but that's likely not going to happen. So just stay in the tide and just stop it from encroaching into the green space. So there's just so much more to explore. The trail system now is in place, so you can actually explore that easily by walking the paths that take you into the beautiful tall spruce tree or the conifers, and then you can walk into a deciduous forest. We talked about the orchard that dates back 150 years in the past, and the apple orchard is still there. There's raspberry canes that have naturalized themselves all towards the west side of the property, which I guess the new crossing over the railway tracks will take you right through that space. So hopefully they'll preserve some of that. Those thickets and so on, so you can be able to pick your own raspberries on your way to the observatory.
I've done that.
Discover it's half the size of High Park when we started. We've lost quite a bit in the process. Obviously we have to appease everybody, so it was a win-win, I think, situation. 60% of the property was preserved and is still protected by heritage designations. Provincially, it's a landscape designation for that one, so that's a cultural heritage landscape. Nationally, it's a National Historic Site. So if we can just keep those things entrenched, of course, they're written by people that are sort of you elect every couple of years, and so hopefully those people will stay true to what the population asked for, what the constituents asked for. And if we can just, like Aizack was saying, if we can just keep the people to come enjoy the property, even under the U of T's watch. We didn't have very much in the way of policing happening, because if there was ever an issue, it's the U of T campus police from downtown would have to come up to, investigate, and that almost never happened. But there were a lot of publics that you walked the property for, 75 years, called it home, enjoyed all those wild spaces that slowly got into a little bit of disarray, but that was exactly why they loved them.
So I think one thing to take away from what you said is, yes, go there for an evening astronomy program, but also come back in the daytime to be able to go for a walk through the woods. So yeah, it is a great place that I don't visit as much as I should. Okay, I do end the podcast with the guest's response to the same question to everyone. I want you to name one thing that you really like about this community. So, Aizack, what's one thing you really like about this community?
Do you mean like in a philosophical sense or like a physical place?
However you want to answer the question.
I love that Richmond Hill has a real community sense about it. I think that I saw that a lot with a lot of the community outreach that happened during the last election. I like the fact that there are biking paths and park areas that we do long-term planning and think about it like a community. So when we're doing like stormwater drain systems and things like that, it sounds boring, but it's a community that cares enough about itself rather than each individual just thinking about like, well, so long as my house is fine, I don't care. There's a bigger planning that comes. There's a respect for individuals and their privacy and their time, but there's also a sensibility. You go to Wilcox Lake and it is jammed because they have built such a beautiful space there that the community comes in all of its various forms with their kids and their dogs and their bikes, and like everybody comes to enjoy it. I want that just as much for the DDO. It would be so easy to drive by the DDO and not know that it's there.
Oh, yeah.
And so I feel like it would be so important. And if I could just add as a continuation a little bit to what Ian and Tuba were talking about for the future of the DDO, I want to take my kids more to the Science Center. despite it being closed down right now, let's skip past that. Just even if it were open, it's far. It's far to go. It's hard to get to. I would spend more time driving to and from that place than I would with my kids in a program.
Yeah.
I would love to have programs like that locally available to the kids, where there would be makers programs, natural sciences. They already go to the forest camps that's run by the TRCA, but you got to go to like Kensington if you want to go to sort of any of the bigger places. And there's no reason that Richmond Hill can't offer that stuff, because even at the Science Center, if you wanted to do your last year of high school there so that you could do a science focus and, post-secondary, that was a space for you. And that's where we were developing young minds. There's no reason why Richmond Hill can't do the same.
Okay, well, thank you for interjecting that. You've given, I don't know what the one word I'm going to put down, but you said some great things. Okay. Tuba, can you say what one thing you really like about Richmond Hill?
Well, it's same thing again. We have a very diverse community from different places live here, but people take care of each other. They care about it. We're like friends, family. We ask, if you don't hear from one another, we ask, how are you the next day? We're always, and even this people among the city that, the officials, when you talk with them, they help us with snow removal, leaves removal, the garbage removal. We always work together. That is, great city, I would say. It's not, nobody is just like selfish. Oh, it's only me and I don't look back.
Nice answer. And I'll end it with you, Ian. What's the one thing that you really like about this community?
It still has potential. It's unspoiled in some respects. It's got lots of still room to grow. It goes at a slower speed, which is good. But it's wedged between a lot of other communities that are sort of giving an idea, vision of how bad it could be, or maybe how good it can be if they sort of, go the other direction. But it just means that we are moving at a pace that, as Tuba pointed out and Aizack pointed out, that people are involved in the process. And they come to council meetings. They actually care. I've seen a lot of people come bring their agenda to council meetings, and the council is obligated, of course, to listen. But they actually listen, and quite often they do have a lot of debate about it. And usually the public has say in the matter. They really do have control over their city. So there's a lot of potential in the city, and I really hope it does grow into a much more beautiful thing. It's already quite nice, but it'd be nice if it grow into even more beautiful things that everybody else would want to have. But we don't want everybody coming to great or poor town. Okay. City.
Thank you for saying that, Ian. I think I'm going to send this personally to each and every councillor and elected official within Richmond Hill and reiterate that. So, yeah. So I will add to the podcast notes the link, the YouTube link, so you can watch this documentary. Please share it. Alex, I will add your website and, of course, a link to the DDO programs. And I know a very good way of keeping in touch with you guys, Ian and Tuba, is your Facebook page. So thank you again for taking the time to do this podcast.
Marge, thanks so much.
Thank you, Marge.
Thank you, Marge.
You're very welcome. Thank you for listening. I would very much appreciate you sharing this podcast. Please tune in next week as we continue to explore the community. Consider emailing me at Marge, M-A-R-J, at margeandre.com. I welcome suggestions for podcast guests. Stay well, stay connected.